National Education Policy (NEP) 2020, introduced recently, is set to change the face of education system in India. In the coming time, we may also hope to see bright young adults with innovative approach towards work and life, instead of pawns obsessing over marks and mugging up bookish knowledge. Keeping in view the changing demands, the NEP 2020 now aims to offer skill-oriented education. What appears to be an idealistic policy will need proper implementation to help the youth make wise choices. The story so far. The Union Cabinet approved a new national education policy after a 34-year gap. The National Education Policy 2020 is meant to provide an overreaching vision and comprehensive framework for both school and higher education across the country. The new NEP, approved by the Cabinet, has not been presented in Parliament. It is the first to be formulated by a Bharatiya Janata Party government and the first in the 21st century. It is only a policy, not a law. I repeat, not a law. Implementation of its proposals depends on further regulations by both states and the centre, as education is a matter of the concurrent subject of the Indian Constitution. So let's see what are some of the key proposals. The NEP 2020 proposes to change the school curricular structure from the current 10+2, which is class 1 to 10 of general education, followed by 2 years of higher secondary school with specialized subjects, with a 5+3+3+4 structure, bringing children from ages 3 to 5 years within the formal education system for the first time, and ensuring curricular continuity in the last 4 years. A mission for foundational literacy and numeracy, free breakfast being added to free lunches in government schools, vocational education along with internships from class 6, and proposed redesign of the board examinations are some other major initiatives for school education. For higher education, a new umbrella regulator has been proposed with separate verticals for regulations, standard setting, accreditation, and funding. It will absorb arts and science, technical and teacher education into its fold, replacing several existing regulatory bodies, and also ensure a level playing field for public and private players. Top foreign universities will be allowed to set up campuses in India. For students, the biggest change may be the introduction of 4-year undergraduate degrees with options for entry and exit at various stages, a credit transfer system, and the abolition of the M.Phil program up to PhD. So, what is the timeline for implementation? The policy is meant to transform the education system by 2040. Some proposals will be implemented immediately, starting with the change in the name of the Ministry of Human Resource Development into the Ministry of Education. There are over 100 action points from the policy. Implementation will be done in phases based on time, region, and types of institutions, with institutes of eminence and central universities taking the lead. For instance, 4-year undergraduate degrees with multiple entry-exit options will be introduced in the 20 IOES, Institute of Excellences, from the 2020-21 academic year, while others continue with the existing 3-year degree courses. Existing MPhil students can continue until they complete their degree, although new admissions for the program will not be accepted. The National Testing Agency will introduce a pilot version of the Common Entrance Test by December 2020, which will be used for admission to all IOES and central universities in 2020. Some Indian institutes of technology are working on developing the technical structure of the Academic Credit Bank, which will also be established by December and become applicable to all new students joining central universities next year. The National Foundational Literacy and Numeracy Mission, which is to be implemented by 2025, will be launched by the end of this year. The National Council of Educational Research and Training, the NCERT, will introduce the curricular framework for the new school structure, including early childhood care, by the next academic year. So let's jolt out some of the difficulty areas lying within this plan or this policy. Some of the proposals require legal changes. The draft Higher Education Commission of India bill has been languishing in the ministry for over a year, but is likely to be published for feedback by September. The proposal for a board of governors for universities may also require amendments of the Central and State Universities Acts. The Cabinet note has already been moved to set up the National Research Foundation as a trust under the government. But in order to make it a fully autonomous body, an act may be required. Others require funding. Free breakfasts can only be considered in the next academic year if a budget allocation is made to cover it. The process of converting affiliated colleges into degree-granting autonomous institutions and then further into fully fledged universities is estimated to take at least 15 years, as the center will have to provide financial assistance for this purpose. The ministry feels that an increase in government funding of education to 6% of GDP will be sufficient to cover the financial implication of the NEP. However, such an increase in funding has been proposed but not achieved for the past half century. The proposal to make the mother tongue the medium of instruction till class 5, which has stirred up the fiercest debates, is dependent on state governments. According to the Education Minister, who would not even confirm that the policy will be implemented by centrally run schools. This education policy also will introduce 4-year undergraduate degree with multiple entry and exit options, and establish a common higher education regulator with fee fixation for both private and public institutions. It also envisions universalization of early childhood education from ages 3 to 6 by 2030, a new school curriculum with coding and vocational studies from class 6 and a child's mother tongue being used as the medium of instruction till class 5. In a federal system, any educational reform can be implemented only with support from the states, and the center has two giant tasks of building a consensus on the many ambitious plans. The policy inter alia aims to eliminate problems of pedagogy, structural inequities, excess asymmetries, and rampant commercialization. The NEP 2020 is the first omnibus policy after one issued in 1986, and it has to contend with multiple crises in the system. It is no secret that primary schools record shockingly poor literacy and numeracy outcomes. Dropout levels in middle and secondary schools are significant, and the higher education system has generally failed to meet the aspirations for multidisciplinary programs. In structural terms, the NEP's measures to introduce early childhood education from age 3 offer school board examinations twice a year to help improve performance, move away from rote learning, raise mathematical skills for everyone, shift to a 4-year undergraduate college degree system, and create a Higher Education Commission of India represent major changes. Progress on these crucially depends on the will to spend the promised 6% of the GDP as public expenditure on education. The policy also says that wherever possible, the medium of instruction in schools until at least class 5, but preferably until class 8 and beyond, will be the home language or mother tongue or regional language. This is a long-held view and has its merits, although in a large and diverse country where mobility is high, the student should have the option to study in the language that enables a transfer nationally. English has performed the role due to historical factors. There are some good elements, the NEP 2020, that will generate little friction and need only adequate resourcing. As I told, provisions of an energy-filled breakfast in addition to the nutritious midday meal to help children achieve better learning outcomes. Creation of inclusion funds to help socially and educationally disadvantaged children pursue education is another. Where the policy fails to show rigor, however, is on universalization of access both in schools and higher education. The right to education needs specific measures to succeed. Moreover, fee regulations exist in some states even now, but the regularity process is unable to rein in profiteering in the form of unaccounted donations. The idea of a National Higher Education Regulatory Council as an apex control organization is bound to be resented by states. Similarly, a national body for aptitude tests would have to convince the states of its merits. Among the many imperatives, the deadline to achieve universal literacy and numeracy by 2025 should be a top priority as a goal that will crucially determine progress at higher level. So we need yet to watch in future what and how this National Education Policy 2020 will be exercised, formulated and executed in totality.